Peter, we've been talking about this, anticipating this. This is the crown jewel, of course, in its assets. So how would it compare to financial firms in the West, and what sort of details do we know so far about what this debut could potentially look like?
Yeah, so Ant Group has been a key part of the Alibaba business for a while. It's probably best known within China for the Alipay business, which is an electronic payments business that's very, very popular and has been very successful. The company expanded beyond that into kind of a range of financial services, including loans. It has a money market fund. It actually generated some concern within China because of the competition it was providing to some of the established financial institutions, including the banks. So it veered after that into some other areas, including travel and helping retailers market themselves online. Its market value is pretty amazing. It's seeking, as we say in the story, a $200 billion market value. For comparison, Goldman Sachs is worth about $75 billion these days. Perhaps a better comparison would be Visa, which is in the payments business too, and that's north of $350 billion. So it's a very big company, and it's looking, as you mentioned, at this dual listing in Hong Kong and in Shanghai.
What do we know about the size of the IPO? Could this really be the one that tops Saudi Aramco?
Yeah, well, as you mentioned earlier, Alibaba for years had held the record as the biggest IPO ever with its listing in New York. It raised about $25 billion. So I think the people in Hangzhou at headquarters do have in the back of their heads this idea that perhaps they could reclaim that crown after Aramco went public and raised about $29 billion. But all of this depends on how the business holds up. We're, of course, in the middle of a very tumultuous period economically. Also, it's not clear how the trade tensions are going to affect this listing and how markets are going to hold up in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic. So they would like to surpass that $29 billion level, but much depends on what happens between now and the actual listing of the business.
So given the geopolitical overlay between Washington and Beijing right now, what does it kind of tell us that this IPO is happening in Greater China rather than the US? And is it a massive injection of confidence if it does go through for Shanghai and Hong Kong?
Well, it's certainly significant. Alibaba, of course, first listed in New York. Partly that's because of the state of play at the exchanges in Greater China, in both Hong Kong and in the mainland. Since Hong Kong lost out on that listing in 2014, Hong Kong has worked hard to loosen some of its restrictions that were not hospitable for some of the local companies. It really wants to bring some of the big Chinese businesses closer to home. The mainland exchanges have also been working hard to draw these companies. And Shanghai Starboard, which is where this offering would take place, has proven pretty successful in drawing some of these companies. We just had the offering of SMIC, the semiconductor company. They raised $7.5 billion. So this would be a big win for the Greater China exchanges if they're able to pull it off.